You should be ready in 2, 3, 1. I guess it's live in a few seconds. Just hold up. Great, it's live.
Good afternoon, evening, and probably morning.
Fatu, seems like we've lost the MD, so please carry on, Fatu.
Wherever you are. Today we have for the first time, not only one, but two ladies who are on this program. Our speaker is a lady. I'll introduce her later. But I have a co-host today who's different from the Fatu that you know, but it's another Fatu. We have Fatu Amira Mambure, and pardon me, Fatu Kamara, but much more elegant. And she's co-hosting with me today for the first time, all the way in Washington, D.C. So I think I just want to do justice to the audience and introduce her. Her name is Fatu Amira Mambure, and she is a budding entrepreneur determined to sift the societal norms surrounding Africa's environmental disregard. Her current plight involves addressing the challenges of waste management as a gateway to the socioeconomic advancements in the Gambia. She has experience in international relations, sustainable development, and renewable energy. She was also one of the finalists, at our first TAF, TAF startups, and she was among the 10 finalists. So Fatu, I'll give the floor to you before I Fatu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Njai, for that very lovely introduction. As aforementioned, I will be co-hosting in place of our very much esteemed and seasoned Madame Fatu Kamara for today's session. And I'm very delighted and humbled to do so amongst the greats, right? We have the first great for me on my part is Mr. Mustafa Njai, who leads by doing. And when I say lead by doing, I mean, he started this whole leadership series. If you have a lot of experience with him, you know that this is one of the 4th stages of his life stages, which is philanthropy. And he's doing that and organizing the mechanisms to put in place to let us, the youth, know that he is here for us. And in doing so, the gateway we have today in our leadership series of virtual, Ms. Oley Dibba, which I am so excited and happy to introduce as well. I mean, it is an absolute honor, an absolute pleasure. And she has given us so much as well. If you want to know more, you can read from the memoirs of an African woman. But for now, she is going to speak to us about empathy. So I have my notepad here. I'm ready to take my notes, and we are ready for questions as well. So I will just gracefully hand it over to Mr. Njai so we can continue with this panel for today.
Thank you very much, Fatu. That was great. What I'll do now is, before I introduce Mrs. Oley Dibba Wadda, yes. I just want to read her bio, her brief bio. She's got a very, 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 very long bio. We just had to cut it short, for this purpose. So Oley Dibba Wadda is a social development executive and strategic analyst with over 25 years of leadership and management experience. She is an expert in African and international policies for leadership called GALE. Prior to Oley, prior Oley was the Director of Human Capital, Youth Skills Development of the African Development Bank, where she led 5 portfolios, namely education, skills, and skills development, youth empowerment and entrepreneurship, public health security, social protection, and nutrition under her department. Before joining the African Development Bank, she was the executive secretary of the Association for the Development of Education in Africa, ADIA, a Pan-African institution hosted by the African Development Bank in Tunisia and then Abidjan. Oley also worked as the executive director of the Forum for African Women Educationists, FAWE, F-A-W-E, based in Nairobi, Kenya, a Pan-African organization for promoting the education of girls across sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the executive director of FEM Africa Solidarité. I hope my French is right, FAS, an Africa-wide organization working on women, peace, and security in Africa, based in Dakar. Mrs. Dibba Wadda has held several senior management and advisory roles across various international development agencies, including Oxfam in Great Britain, the Commonwealth Education Fund, and Concern Universal. Between 2021 and 2013, she chaired GIMAC, or GIMAC, G-I-M-A-C, campaign movement across Africa, and is the current chair of the executive committee of the Association for the Development of Education in Africa. The current chair of Advisory Council of Teach for All Africa and a global ambassador for the 10 by 10 and Concern Universal. A certified life coach, Oley Dibba Wadda has over the past 20 years been providing coaching and mentoring support on emotional life skills to several youth across the African continent. Oley has traveled extremely to cover 50 plus countries globally and been invited to speak at several international forums as guest and keynote speaker. She is the author of memoirs of an African woman on a mission. In recognition of her exemplary contribution towards human capital development globally, Mrs. Dibba Wadda was awarded the Inspiring Woman of Excellence in 2012 and the African Woman Leadership in 2013. She was one of the nominees for the 2017 New African Woman in Education and one of the nominees for the 2020 She Awards for Outstanding Woman Writer. In March 2020, Oley Dibba Wadda was selected amongst the first cohort of 15 African women leaders across Africa for the President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Moji initiative, which seeks to inspire and prepare women to take up roles in the highest echelon of public leadership across Africa. I think, yeah, that's everybody will agree that that's a great bio, shortened. But Madam Oley Dibba Wadda, before we start, we want to extend also our condolences, from the TAF Africa Foundation, management of TAF Africa Global, and everybody who's listening for your great loss. We know how close you were to your mom, and we knew that you lost your mom, over 40-something days ago. And that was why we couldn't have you as scheduled. So now the floor is yours, and we're all listening. Mrs. Dibba Wadda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Njai. Good evening. Good afternoon, Fatu. Good evening, TAFLA 2020 cohorts, and good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone listening from wherever you are. Thank you for this invitation to participate once again on the TAFLA lectures this year round. I am truly honored and humbled. This evening, my discussion will focus on the theme empathy, However, I would want to hone in a bit on leadership, just a few slides to set the scene. Dr. Karamo Sonko had provided an in-depth and comprehensive overview on leadership and expectations, and I don't think we would be able to follow up on his footsteps or his presentation, and we will not be able to do more justice than he has. So I won't be able to match that, but I will just use that to set the scene before I really hone into on leadership and empathy. So I have an agenda today, and these are the things that I would really want to talk on activating empathy for 21st century skills, understanding the leadership and the types of leaders, the styles of leadership, the roles and expectation, the servant leader, which I will really put emphasis on, especially as we talk on empathy, and also the characteristics and qualities of a leader, focusing on empathy, which would be the entry point. We will talk about empathy and what it is, why we should feel empathy, the differences between empathy and being an empath, and also delving deeply on what it means to be an empath, who is and who is not an empath, and finally, leadership and empathy. So going on to the slide. So every leader who assumes great responsibilities must have certain leadership qualities, and empathy is one of these fundamental qualities. Empathy is a cognitive capacity that a person absolutely must have to fulfill a leadership role. It doesn't matter at what stage or at what age of your life you are in. When you're able to empathize or relate to an individual or a group of or community or their situation, be rest assured you have some traits of exemplary leadership skills in you. I will give you an example. During my first 100 days of joining and leading any organization, the need to understand each individual within my new team and understanding how best to work with them is a must for me. One cannot lead with a one-size-fits-all approach. One-to-one meetings has to be a key. Asking questions to each of them, how can I help you? How can I help you get the best out of you or the work that you do? Or what are your expectations of me as your leader? These are important. These are fundamental. For instance, at the African Development Bank, where I worked, I led a diverse team across 5 sectors, as Mr. Njai had said, on human capital. Now, these individuals come from across 19 different countries with diverse perspectives, diverse experiences, and backgrounds. It was imperative that I needed to have an understanding where each of them was coming from and their ideas. I would have failed woefully if I had to work with all of them the same way. Some were more experienced than myself. Others had been in the organization for many years and understood the dynamics of the organization, yet still others were starting new on the job like I was. Now, to get on the same footing, I needed to put myself in the shoes of each and every one of them independently if I was going to be successful in my job. We must remember that empathy allows us to be the type of leader we all want and desire to lead us. Someone who brings out the best in those they lead and rallies them around to shared vision of the future. So, now, one might ask, what is empathy and what has leadership got to do with it? The role of a leader is not to tell people what to do. The role of a leader is not to be the role of a leader is to be a sounding board, an office therapist, if you may, the person that they come to who would bring the best out of them, someone who would push them to their goals and put them, in positions and push them to their goals and put them into the positions or situations that helps them to bring the best out of themselves. There are many skills that I said, and direct reports that trust you will run through walls for you. And if you gain their trust and empathize with their challenges, you can build them into the best versions of themselves. You must remember that a true leader should focus on building trust. And empathy will, I'll dig more into it. And an effective way to achieve this trust is through demonstrating empathy. In most cases, successful leaders are often portrayed as authoritarian, with an unbending will. This is what we've been made to believe. We are told that a leader has to be this, a leader has to be that. However, this is a sign of weak leadership style. When you see an authoritative leader who is bossy, controlling, arrogant, trying to show they know it all, a me, myself, and I person, if you don't remember anything and everything that I share with you here today, remember this, that individuals have insecurities of their own, and in most cases is trying to cover their own insecurities and weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, and that is all well and good, and it is part of human nature. But note, however, that when that individual believes or behaves in this way, it is not personal to you as an individual. It is not about you. In most cases, these individuals are fighting an internal battle with themselves, with their demons, what have you, and they, in most cases, lack the exceptional leadership qualities. Leaders are not born. Leaders are not made. Leaders are found. This is one key lesson I learned from my uncle, Rene Kereol. I'm sure, TAF, you know him very well.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I am sure most of you know him or are aware of him and the work that he does coaching and mentoring leaders around the world.
Yes.
And it was an eye-opener for my team and I when I invited him and one of our team's annual retreats to speak to us on leadership and the expectations of being leaders. And I learned a lot from him on that. Being able to listen, and I repeat, listen and respond with empathy is overwhelmingly the one interactive skill that outshines all other skills of leadership. Your staff will be more loyal, more engaged, your team will be happier and will work better with each other. Everyone will be more assertive. Without empathy, you cannot be a good listener, and you will struggle to build a team or nurture a new generation of leaders. You will not inspire followers or elicit loyalty. Oops, is it going where it should go? So now we're talking about leadership styles. Now there are different types of leadership styles. When you want to know which leaders you think you might be, ask yourself these simple questions. And I'm sure you'll be able to gauge for yourself the type of leader you are. Are you the Kwame Nkrumah or Nelson Mandela, the visionary? Are you the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf? Are you Obama, the inspirer? Are you the Yahya Jammeh? Are you the Adama Barrow? Are you the Jacinta Ardern of New Zealand? And so on and so forth. Who inspires you, or what inspires you about them and why? What will you have to work on internally to emulate that particular leader? Read about them, about their leadership styles, or create your own style. You might not like everything about one individual. Blend a mix of some of the styles depending on the leadership situation you face. Or be unique in that sense and in that style. So going now on leadership styles, here I gave the example of a servant leader, and there are different types of leaders, but here I focus on the expectations of the servant leader. This is my preferred style. However, in all the past 4 jobs I have had to assume, leading 3 Pan-African organizations, I was compelled to combine and blend both servant and transformational leadership styles because of the situation of the organizations at the time and the responsibility. There's a lot of fixing that needed to be done. For 2 of the organizations, they were on the brink of collapsing, and they really needed to be lifted. And for the African Development Bank, it was a different kettle of fish for me. A different approach was needed. ADB is a different animal. It was not necessarily a full-blown organization that I was leading, but a department I had to manage. And mind you, none of the divisions had managers when I had joined at the time of assuming those positions, as we were going through a restructuring process. And when I get into the real talk on the empathy, you would be able to understand why I was giving this as an example. I came in, and when there was a lot of downsizing and reprioritizing that was happening, staff were being deployed to the region. There were no division managers in the department at the time. I needed to recruit 3 managers to oversee 5 sectors. Staff morale was very low as a result of the uncertainties when I joined. Some staff had been there for more than 10 years. One was in the same position for 22 years and had not been promoted. Now, I had in my department 2 presidential flagship initiatives that needed to be set up from scratch. I needed to recruit a coordinator for 2 of these flagship initiatives. In the process of doing all of these, 2 of my staff were on maternity leave. One was suffering from schizophrenia as a result of all the pressures we were having, another from depression. In the process, one had a stroke and was evacuated out of the country, and I lost my executive assistant. So you could talk about, coming in and just in a whirlwind and storm. And she had passed away, but that was a long time after. At one point, I was the manager, the director, the agony aunt, the counselor, the editor-in-chief, and still had to battle with some team members who were resistant to the change naturally. I don't need to tell you the combination of leadership skills that was required to juggle all of these. Expectations of my performance was high. I was torn between boosting staff morale to deliver and at the same time meet management expectations. And I thought to myself, naturally, we cannot be talking about building human capital when you're not supporting your team. And I needed to focus on building my team first because they were supposed to be the ones that were meant to deliver, especially what is expected of management. I needed to prioritize. I had to combine crisis management, transformational leadership, and servant leadership skills together. And in doing that, it was very, very difficult, and it was very, it was a challenging experience. But looking at the slides here, okay. So when we were talking about this sector on the leadership and on the servant leader, now how do you bring out the best of being a servant leader? You need to start with being of service to those that matter. You will not be able to satisfy the needs of all those you serve. You will need to ultimately combine different leadership skills, focusing on empathy, but ultimately make a final decision for yourself, following your intuition and being widely able to take on whatever responsibilities comes out with those decisions. You need to start with being of service to. This is where spending the first 100 days will come in handy. That way you are able to know who the movers, the shakers, the blockers are. That way you get to understand what makes each individual in your team tick, what sparks the other. You get to understand who their allies are and who they work with better, who they work together with as a team, and you're able to help serve and support them effectively. I remember there was a conference that we were sitting in with Tony Blair and President Madabio, and I think the president of Colombia, former president of Colombia, Manuel Santos. And Tony Blair said, when he was prime minister, he was told, you must listen to the people, you must listen to the people. And he said, I am, but they all demand different things. They're all asking for different things. So how do you manage that? And this is where you need to really come in with that intuitive style and, and leadership of knowing what you lead, how you lead, taking decisions and taking that responsibility for the decisions that you make. Where is Is it coming through? Trying to get to the next slide. So we're looking here at the characteristics of and qualities of a leader. And this is where empathy, being consistent, being honest, being, active and acting with integrity, and, being sociable, having empathy. And these are all where all these things come to play to ensure that you engage with your teams and engage with them better so that you're able to move forward with them and at the same time engage the organization in the process. The truest form of emotional intelligence and empathy is feeling. But more so beyond that feeling is the act of doing something about that empathic feeling. And this brings me to the question on empathy. Empathy is the sympathy of feeling bad for someone's situation. Empathy is the capacity that allows a leader to understand the perspectives and feelings of others and foresees the impact of his or her action and events on them. It is the ability to understand another person or other people's experiences, perspectives, and feelings. It is the ability to put yourself in another person's shoes. But make sure you are assessing how they would feel in their shoes, not just how you would feel in their shoes, because this is what the key is. So you must be able to remember and to know that you must be able to not just say, I feel you, I feel your pain, but you must be able to feel their shoes and feel how they feel. Now, the question we ask is, who is an empath? Is this coming through? It's very slow. Who is an empath? And why should we empathize? Sorry, I have the slide here. Okay, you know that the feeling of who feels it knows it. As a leader, you cannot bring out the best in any individual or group if you're not able to put yourself in those people's shoes and actually feel what they're feeling. It does not matter how well you know about the issues at hand. It does not matter whether you have 10 master's degrees. It does not matter whether you have a PhD and 2 postdoctoral qualifications. It doesn't matter how savvy you are. If you do not have the certain characters embedded in emotional intelligence, you will not make it, or even if you do, you will struggle every single day of your work life leading people. Leading and managing people is one of the most difficult tasks another human being can have. And without being human, and without having certain characteristics and consistently building on those interpersonal skills and characters over time, you can say goodbye to your degrees and your knowledge. I don't care what anyone tells you about the knowledge a person has on content or on a subject matter and the issues. If you have not had the practical experience of leading and managing diverse people and or managing people's expectations, if you do not have the experience of lifting others as they grow and as you grow, then you need to work on the leadership skills. You must be and feel. And if you see there's a lot of emphasis on feel and feeling, you must be and feel the people that you are leading. You must feel their pain. You must feel their excitement, their anger, their frustration. And in order to put yourself in their shoes, you must have empathy and be able to empathize with them. Now, usually when I give examples, I like to give live examples of myself when I'm talking about certain issues. I had, as I mentioned in earlier on, I had two of my staff that went on maternity leave and they came back. And they had, you know, at the African Development Bank, you are entitled to, if you are a nursing mother, you are entitled to travel with your child and a carer when you are going on mission. And so I think I had 3 at the time in my department, or 2. And I remember some of the other directors saying, you know, all your budget will go on this because it means you have to pay for the mother, you have to pay for the baby, and you have to pay for the helper as well. But for me at the time, I wanted younger people. I wanted to start building these young people to work in the organization. And it was very difficult, but I know what it was like for myself as a mother, trying to work, raising 4 children, working and leading an organization where it's a patriarchal, you know, male-dominated work system. And it was very difficult, you know, not to be able to put yourself in their positions. In addition to that, these women would also have to work flexi hours and come to work early or come to work late and leave early because naturally they were breastfeeding. Now, in some of the other departments, those who had children or who had babies struggled because their bosses, you know, would put on hold their missions because it saved cost on their travels. So that was, you know, that was one example. Another example was another lady who was working remotely. Her son was supposed to take her, his baccalaureate, and he wasn't doing well because the mom was based in Abidjan. And it affected her performance as a mother because she wanted to run the home. She wanted to be there. The husband was, you know, in the country where they were, and it was very difficult for her. And the bank doesn't allow you to work remotely. So we had to have some kind of agreement for her to go back home and work virtually and be able to engage, but at the same time be able to supervise her son and help him with his studies in preparation. And these are some of the things, if you are a leader, you need to be in a position to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes, especially when you're working with young women, in particular, who are in their childbearing years. You know, so we should feel empathy because it is the oil that keeps our relationships with those we work with running smoothly, with those that we interact with those that we serve, and with those that we lead. We should feel empathy because it is a valued currency. It allows us to create bonds of trust. It gives us insights into what others may be feeling or thinking. It helps us to understand how or why others are reacting to situations. It sharpens our people acumen and it informs our decisions as well. We should feel empathy because it gives us an opportunity and an ability to identify and understand each person's situations, feelings, and motives. The opportunity to be able to recognize the concerns other people have. Empathy means being able to see things through someone else's eyes. It provides us with the opportunity and enables us to understand the human environment within which we are operating in business, and therefore make better decisions or predictions, craft better tactics, inspire loyalty, and communicate clearly. So, coming on you know, empathy, who is not an empath? Now, when you are not an empath, you will know. And I will give you some questions on that you would use to gauge yourself to know whether you are an empath, whether you're working towards it, or whether you are, you know, you lack that empathy, because empathy is something that you can build on. But being an empath is something that you're born with. So it's important that you're able to understand that. The term empathy really comes from empathy with the ability to understand people and expressing their feelings of others outside of your own perspective. And you need to be able to understand that. You need to be able to put yourself in those people's shoes. You need to be able to appreciate that. When you are not an empath, you would be able to know And I'll give an example of who I felt was, or was one of, somebody that I was following on social media. Now, we saw Lovette Jallow, and I'm sure a lot of you know her, and the way she behaved when people were stranded in Lebanon. Now, people could say she was emotional, people could say, she was anxious, but when I listened to the way she was talking, and when she was talking about, how she felt, not just with the ladies that were stranded in Lebanon, but generally her work on human rights. I said, and she was saying, I don't know why I went into, I was a lawyer. I don't know why I went into this. My first instinct was, this woman is an empath, and because she carries so much, she has become a sponge that has absorbed so many positive and negative energies. Because when you are an empath, you absorb so much of other people's sympathy, you absorb so much of other people's feelings, that you need to be able to balance those two. As an empath, you put a lot of faith in your instincts when making decisions. And, although others might not consider you impulsive, you're actually trusting your intuition to guide you to the choice that feels right for what you do. This is why when my brother Usain Ngom asked the questions during his lectures a few weeks ago about how quick we are to make decisions, I had gauged myself 1, because on a scale of 1, because for me, when decisions are made as a group and we come to a stalemate, you know what you want. As a leader, you know what you want, you know what the implications would be, but you're also ready to take on responsibility. Now, when he said, well, those who are on more towards the scale of 10, those people, when he was gauging between 1 and 10 and saying that those who were more 10 are people who would listen carefully, who are more careful in terms of how they react, I put myself on a 1. And it was based on the fact that I felt that, when you know what you know and you have confidence in what you say, you put yourself in that situation. Empaths usually have a magnetic energy, and they are sponges. And on the flip side, they can absorb a lot of energy, like I said, with somebody like Lovette, both positive and negative. And this can sometimes lead to a person being emotionally affected. You build on this like a muscle. It's a muscle. So when you are an empath and when you want to work on building empathy, it's like going to the gym and building that muscle. The more you are conscious of it, the more you are aware, the more you put yourself in other people's position, the more you build on that. And the more you exercise on it, the more muscle you build. Plus, the more you are aware and conscious of empathy and the other people's feelings, the more it increases within you. So keep building on that empathic feeling. You know how sometimes you can just look at some person and you may have never met that person and you just feel that they may have some pain without knowing what the pain is all about. You just know. You don't know how you know, but you just feel the pain the person is going through. Well, that could be one of the indicators of feeling empathic. So when we go on talking about who is an empath or who is not an empath, we really need to look at that perspective. Now, what is an empath? Empaths are an expression of do unto others what you would like to be done unto you. Invariably, as an empath, you sometimes feel you are carrying the whole world on your shoulders, the problems at home, the challenges we face in the country, amongst others. It is important that we realize that feeling empathy is a choice. And having empathy for someone or a situation is something one can develop. And I want to just repeat and emphasize on that. It is important that we realize that feeling empathy is a choice, and having empathy. So there's one which is the feeling and the other which is having that empathy for someone or a situation is something that you can work on and you can develop and you can build. Research suggests that practicing active listening, which is fundamental, can increase empathy and improve relationship satisfaction. Working on your emotional intelligence can help you gauge your ability to read other people's expressions, and it can be used, to practice and improve your skills of emotional intelligence. I want to give the example of, again, Fatu Kamara. I remember somebody sent me something that she had said on a recent message that was on social media about a young man whose limb was amputated, with the image showing him rebuilding his house as a result of the damages that were caused by the rain. And she may not know the person, and she said that, but she felt that she felt the pain, and she was advocating to have a GoFundMe. And I remember something that she wrote and said, to set up a GoFundMe using her network. And I recall where she said, I know there is a donor fatigue, and I never wanted to start this. I never wanted to start another fundraiser, but this one touched my heart. And when she wrote that, this one touched my heart, my sleep is all gone. And I decided to take note on what she said. That is a typical example of a feeling of empathy at that point in time. You don't know the person. You felt what that person was going through at that particular time. And we're asking the question, who is an empath? And I'm coming to that one now here. Who is an empath, and how do you know if you're an empath? Ask yourself these questions. Do you easily feel sad when the people around you feel sad? Are you very conscious of imagining how the person you would feel if you criticize them? Or you ask yourself the question and imagine how you would feel if you were in their place? Do you feel you get upset when someone is being treated disrespectfully? Do you get excited when someone is feeling excited? Do you have tender or concerned feelings for people less fortunate than yourself? There's a lot of lists. Do you become irritated? Do you know or you remain unaffected when someone is close to you, is happy or not? These are areas that would be able to help you to gauge whether you're an empath or whether you're not an empath. I try to throw this in, and I did that to the last cohort of the 2019 cohort, and say, for us women, when your husband is cheating on you, do you just know, sometimes when that phone rings, you just know who that person is. You just feel who it is, that this is not the business trip, or this call is not from, the mother or from a friend, but it's from somebody else. That 10th feeling that you have, that intuition, those are all signs of that feeling of being empathic. But it is something that when you know you have it, you need to work on building them. So you need to work on that feeling. You need to work on building that kind of feeling of empathy. Sometimes you don't know, you just know that you know. And this is what is tricky about being empathic, especially if you're not conscious of it. If you're able to gauge a lot of these or more than these questions, and I can share it with TAF after, if you want on some of these, then these can be indications that you do have empathy, and I strongly advise that you work on them and build on them. Research suggests that practicing active listening can increase empathy and improve relationships for satisfaction. And it is very important to note that empathy is not just about commiserating. It can also be experienced in response to positive emotions like happiness and pride. You have good intuition. You're watching an emotional movie and you cry throughout the movie as if you're part of it. You have a hard time not caring. People tend to tell you their problems. You just sit and people come and you're wondering, why are these people coming to me and telling me, intimate and confidential issues? You have a hard time setting boundaries. You would see the world in unique ways. These are all indicators of whether you are or are not an empath. So, which brings me now to the issue of empathy being a choice. No, I think I've gone beyond the slide. I'm going back to the previous slide, sorry. So like I said, when you are empathic, it is a choice. You know, you need to really understand that you can work on that, you can build on it, and you can also expand on it. You can discuss with friends and colleagues in terms of how you want to gauge whether you are an empath or whether you are not an empath. We all remember again, and I'm bringing all these examples home. Khadijaju was a classic example. Her life will never be the same again because someone saw her plight, felt it, shared it with others. Others came offer short-term services, and boom, things have changed for her. Life has changed. Tomorrow, she may be able to translate and replicate the same to others that she has left behind because she's been promoted. She will be able to feel their shoes because she was there. Although that may not necessarily be the case for everyone. Sometimes you could have been wearing those shoes and you're in that situation and your situation changes, but you're still not able to feel that pain. That someone is not necessarily an empath. You must remember that being an empath is not something you do, it is something you are. Empaths are highly sensitive, naturally giving, spiritually open, good listeners, and they have big loving hearts. And people take them for granted, and people cross boundaries because of that. Empaths, as I mentioned, absorb other people's emotions. They are highly in tune to other people's emotions, whether they're good or bad. They're very intuitive. They experience the world through their intuition. And it is important for them to tune into their intuition and listen to their gut feelings about people. Sometimes people walk into your house, you just know this one is nothing but trouble. Or this person come, you feel that energy, that positive vibe. You just know. You don't know how you know, but you know. Again, these are indications of being an empath and building on that. So right now, we have had some few cases on people who are being raped in the Gambia. Some have feelings about it, others react differently about it. Unless you are an empath, you will not be able to put yourself in the positions of some of those victims. You will not be able to understand. And it's important that we really, as if we want to become leaders, we are able to really feel other people's feelings. Try to remember to not just recognize, but feel the impact on others. Do not confuse empathy with making people happy and being nice. Empathy is different from compassion, and it is not the same as sympathy. We must not confuse them. They are different. The question I'm usually asked is empathy, can empathy be learned? My response is always that to some degree, yes, but there are some people who are more naturally gifted at quickly seeing other people's experiences and to learn empathy, more than others. And it requires incredible discipline. You must build on it. You must be very conscious of it. You must be very aware of it. And you must acknowledge that you have it. So going into now talking about, I think there was a time when a video that I saw on empathy when we were talking about leadership, Obama and President Obama and Joe Biden were talking about leadership expectations. I think there was an intimate discussion that they had. And empathy came out in that discussion, that it was a key component on requirements and expectations of good leadership. And I cannot overemphasize enough the importance and the value added of a leader with empathic skills. Now, I'm going to raise a very sensitive question here, or very controversial, article that I read in the media, which came out lately, and it was during this coronavirus in some countries. And Forbes and BBC had shared these examples of countries that were led by women and the impact on decisions made in managing the corona pandemic. Now, that is not to say that only women have empathy, but some argue that women as mothers, have that maternal instinct, and as leaders, these leaders made decisions as if the people that they were serving were their babies, their children. They did not think about the economy first. They did not think about it as a popularity contest or see themselves as leaders. They saw themselves as humans first and needed to make human decisions to save the people they serve. And because that is why they prioritized, they were able to manage the crisis in their countries. Now, there were questions in the article that asked in these articles, are female leaders statistically better at handling the coronavirus crisis? I believe research was conducted by the Washington Post and the US Today or something like that on gender differences in leadership style. And in fact, the USA Today suggested we should all move to female-led countries to avoid the virus, as a joke. Now, on the other hand, another research revealed that Senegal ranked second as one of the countries that managed and contained the virus, the spread of the virus, due to leadership. And obviously he was a man. Now, if the comparisons that were made in these articles, they brought New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern for her handling of the coronavirus, and similarly, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, for controlling the virus in her country. But like I said, not all females are faring quite well. Germany, Taiwan, New Zealand, Iceland, Finland, Norway, Denmark, they showed a collage of those leaders, and they were all women. So maybe this is something that we could look at as research on empathy and leadership vis-a-vis men and women, and I think that's something that could be explored. But thus the claim that the countries most affected by COVID-19 are run by men, and the countries that are best COVID-19 managed are led by women. Now, these are all speculations, but these are things that people, especially yourselves as young leaders, could start looking into. Maybe there is something in the maternal instincts that make one able to feel something. When your baby cries, you feel it. When your baby is hungry, you know it. So is it, isn't it? I don't know. I don't have the answers for that. Now, the difference may or may not have to do with politics than gender. And the articles argue that, it may not necessarily be so. These are all speculative, and how the tendencies on gender versus the crisis happen, we would not know. But these are something that could be looked into. And I would be more than happy, to share the links to these articles, both the Forbes and the BBC, if you really want to read more on it and to do more research on that as you go into your own leadership on that. So without, in concluding, I just want to say that when we don't empathize with those we serve, we tear them down, we discourage them, we push them away. And when all they need from us is encouragement. And if you want to remember anything, remember that people stand with leaders who stand with them. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was great. That was great. Fatou, I think what we'll do, we'll go straight into the questions and answers.
Okay.
Do you want to start first, or do I go first? I mean, you go first, ladies first. So we've had a lady that did the presentation and the lecture. So if you have any questions coming from Facebook, go ahead, and then I'll now fire some from the Zoom link.
Mr. Njai, if you do not mind, I would like to put quite a little bit of balance on it. So if there are any questions from your end that we could explore, I'll be very happy to do so afterwards. But we can go ahead with the first question. I only have two. I said, if you would so please, if you would grace us with your presence to ask the first questions.
Okay, all right. Okay, let me fire.
Just to put in that gender balance just a little bit.
Okay, no problem.
I like that.
No problem. Okay, so what we Auntie O, what do we have first? Somebody said, how do you balance between being a mother at the same time maintaining your African identity amidst all the foreign countries you have lived and worked? How do you balance?
My response is just be yourself. Now, I was asked that question once in an interview of how do you travel like the way you do, being a wife, being a mother, your husband being an African and a Gambian for that matter, allowing you to travel like this and going. And to be honest, I was not thinking about it. It wasn't but the problem was actually not my husband. The problem was my children, especially my youngest son, Samsu. When we were in Nairobi, he would always, I used to come home late from work. You know, I have meetings, and I remember one day I came home late and I found him on the dining table. He hadn't eaten. And I came home around 10 o'clock at night. And he said to me, I just wanted to see your face and I wanted to have dinner with you. And that hurt me. I cried that day because I was, you're a mother, you want to give them everything. You want to travel. Your job is your passion at the same time. You're a wife. It's something, if you think about all the time, you wouldn't be able to juggle any of them. Another example that I had was I went to my son's school, this same Samsu. I went to his school in Nairobi, and the first thing the teacher asked me was, and you are? And I was like, I am his mother. And in all the schools, it's the mothers that go to the PTAs, it's the mothers that do all these things. And in this case, it was his father who was there when they have plays. He was on stage, helping to build the stage. He was doing all of that. And he said to them, my mom is always traveling. My mom is always busy at work. So this particular time, the father traveled and I was around and I went to the school and the teacher didn't know me. And I went home and I wrote my resignation letter. And I said, I was going to resign. This is bad motherhood, and I felt guilty. Now, you never stop feeling guilty. You never stop feeling bad. But there comes a time when you have to balance it. I struggled more with my kids, the guilt of the kids, than with the husband, because my husband was very supportive and understanding. But I kept asking myself, what kind of a mother am I that leave home at 6:30 in the morning and come home at 10:30 at night because you want to work? And there is no answer. There is no response to it. I think for us as women, we want to fight for gender equality and women's rights, but we also do not realize that we still come home to run the house, to sort out what happens in the kitchen. We still have our social roles, and it's very difficult to juggle all three of them. But I try not to think of it. I just get on and be myself with what I do, and hope that someday my children will forgive me for that.
Okay, great. Fat, you have a question, or shall I add another one?
Oh, we can do tit for tat. I do have a particular question from someone from the Fatu Network. They asked, how do you manage not being taken advantage of as an empath? Mm-hmm. As someone that is empathetic, how do you manage not being taken advantage of by others?
That's why as an empath, you need to be, I kept talking about, you need to be aware, because when you get people you have energy vampires that would just suck and zap your energy. They would zap and take advantage of your kindness, your generosity, your feeling, and they even abuse the fact that you feel sorry for them. So you need to be in a position where you actually do understand that, and you actually are able to set boundaries. That is why I had said it is something you need to work on. Once you're aware of it, you need to work, because people will take advantage over you. People will take advantage of the fact because they feel that you are compassionate or you are sympathetic, and not gauging it as being an empath or feeling empathic. So you will always have that, but knowing yourself and knowing when to set those boundaries and, you know, not allowing people to cross those boundaries is important.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mr. Jai, do we have another question on that part?
It's effective. Oh, Fatou, are you saying something? My internet keeps dropping.
We are waiting patiently.
Oh, you're waiting. Okay. All right. So, this one says, can a leader who is full of empathy leads effective, giving how difficult is to someone to jail for life or sentencing someone to death?
You know, I think I'm guessing the person is asking if you're a leader and you have empathy and you are supposed to sentence somebody to life or to death. If you're an empath, how do you manage that?
Yeah, how difficult is it? Yeah.
I think, you know, you know with your conscience what is right and what is not right. Now, when you are if it's a judge, obviously you go by the law. This is what the law says. Now, when you become a leader and somebody has that, you know, as a leader that is empathic, I mean, I don't know how many African leaders we have that feeling of empathy and sympathy that is not politically related, or being some, you know, people being pardoned for political reasons, or just for reasons of being an empath and having that feeling. Now, when you are an empath, you need to also be, on the one hand, be able to put yourself in the people's shoes, but you also need to be firm. You have to be firm, and you need to be able to strike that balance, and only you would know when to strike that balance between being firm, being empathic, and being sympathetic. Now, this person who is talking about the prison sentence, is it sympathy? Is it empathy, being, you know, being human, feeling that person who is dying? I'll give an example. During the Tobaski, we had we had two rams here. Now, the night before, the rams were tied underneath our window, and I remember one of them kept crying, and I said to my husband, I hope this is not the one that we are going to kill tomorrow, because I cannot imagine this ram behind here, it's raining, tied there, is standing up and is supposed to be killed tomorrow. And at one point, my husband said, "Mane, you know," and the sheep kept on crying all the time, and I couldn't sleep. I really, really felt that pain, that cry in that lamb or that sheep that was crying. It is something that it's very difficult to explain to somebody when that feeling, because you are not able to know, you know, and like Lovette said, or like Fatou said, you know, I can't explain it. I just feel this thing. And when you feel that, you would know whether you need to be firm, whether this is something that you need to be compassionate about, whether you need to be sympathetic about, or whether you need to be empathic about, because they're all different. They're not the same. So you need, as a leader, to be able to draw those boundaries and those lines and make a decision. I don't know about a murderer. If somebody is a murderer, the law will make a decision on that. So I can't make a decision as a leader and say the person should be pardoned because I'm an empath. So, you know.
Great. Fatou, you have one?
Yes, we have a couple of more questions that are now just coming in. There's a particular one that I would like to ask, though, prior. We spoke about the patriarchy and as well as the matriarchy, with women kind of naturally having that instinct of empathy. It doesn't need to be practiced. It does need to be practiced, but it is naturally within it. So what message can we give to the men or even the women? Because, you know, I don't want to characterize. Some women are not empaths. Equally, the same way that men are not empaths, some of them,
some are.
Women are not empaths, exactly, and some are. So what is the message overall just to the people that are not naturally empaths? I don't want to just say men, or
like I said, it's a choice. It's something you build upon. Now, we are all born with all these qualities and characteristics and you know, this things that we have in us. You either build on them or it's there and you tap into it, you don't, it comes and goes ad hoc, or you are aware of it and you build on it and you're conscious of it. You take notes. You know, I keep a reflective diary on everything I do. So you take notes on things, when things happen, why they happen. You know, this person came, what do you think? You know, you eventually, when you know, it's like I said, some of these gifts that are God-given gifts, when you know something. When somebody talks to you in an interview, somebody walks into an interview, you would know when this person is lying at some questions, you would know when the person is not. So, and I think both men and women have it. Naturally, women as nurturers build on it because you give birth to a child that is helpless, dependent on you. So without realizing it as mothers, you build on it. Now, fathers have it. Some fathers, some men have it. They feel their daughters. They feel, you know, you have it, but it's something that you need to work on. It's something you need to build on. So we all need to be working on that. And as long as we are conscious of it, as long as we are aware of it, and we build on it like a muscle, it comes. Same as intuition. It's like your soul talking to you. So when you work on, every time you consult internally with yourself and you trust it, that your gut feeling, this is what it is, then eventually you are able to master it and you're able to work on it. I don't know whether I've been able to answer that question, but it's something that you have to build on. It's a choice you have to make, that you want to build on that, and you deliberately work on building that feeling. The feeling you build when you first fall in love, you know, that feeling, you know, that you work on. So yeah.
Everyone has the capacity to
Absolutely.
be everyone.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just to work on it and build on it. Thank you very much for that answer.
Yeah, I have a question here. Somebody says, how do you manage between being an empathetic leader and not being taken for granted?
That's where you set the boundaries. When you know that you're an empathetic leader, you know you're a sponge, you know people will absorb, you know that people will take advantage or take for granted, and you need that discipline. So I had mentioned somewhere about it takes a lot of discipline. You need to work on yourself. If you know that it's something you want to build on, if you know it's something that's already coming out of you, you need to be very, very conscious of it. Like you're taking every step in the morning when you're brushing your teeth, you need to be aware of it, because people will take advantage, whether you like it or whether you don't like it. But when you set boundaries as a leader, empathy is one of those skills. There's so many other qualities that you need to have as a leader. So one is also being firm, being consistent. You know, it's also being very honest, having integrity. These are all qualities of leadership, but you must be able to put your foot down and take responsibility for whatever decision you make, be it good or be it bad. Either way, you only have control over how you feel and what you feel. You don't have control over what other people do. So you need to work on your control and what your own feelings as well.
Okay, we have another. Does being an empath depend on the situation? Blending it with other styles of leadership?
Now, being an empath, that empathy coming up, or being an empath, that trigger that brings it out, it could be triggered by a situation. So maybe you had it, it was dormant, and then all of a sudden a situation happens, something happens that triggers it. Now, as a person, you can be conscious of it, aware, and start working on it, or it can come, you react and respond to that situation, and then it goes back into autopilot. So that's why you need to be conscious and be open and be aware of it. And once you do and you know it's come, you work on it. And when you work on it, you need to know how to see through what's good, what's bad, who's taking advantage, who isn't, when to stop, when not to, when to set boundaries, when not to, but it could be triggered by a situation.
Great. Another question from my side is, somebody says, how best can you advise us as upcoming youths to be empathetically sober in managing our skills?
In managing?
Their skills, our skills.
I can tell you one thing: if you want to be a leader, you better start working on that feeling of empathy. Like I said, that feeling of empathy is a choice. People who work for you are the engines. They are the ones that can make or break your business or your organizations. They are the ones, if you're not able to put your shoes, you as the leader are not the bus driver. You are the compass. You are the one with the vision. Now, those people who work with you, you need to be able to say, these people that work for me are my engines. They need to be lubricated. If these people are working for me and working towards a particular vision that I have, they have left children at home. They have left families at home. Who is feeding those families as they're driving that bus? You know, waking up in the morning and coming to work in a bad mood. Maybe they had a problem with their spouses and came to work with this. So you always try and put yourself in that situation. If somebody comes and, you know, sometimes we just say the person is in a bad mood, got up from the wrong side of the bed, without really understanding how they woke up or what they came up with. But all I can tell you from my experience, if you lack that empathy, you will struggle to build a team. You will struggle to have loyalty from the people who serve you or the people that you serve. You will struggle to build trust and to earn their trust. You have to be able to feel some of their feelings. I'm not saying be sympathetic. I'm not saying be, you know, compassion. I'm talking about that empathy of putting the shoes, wearing the shoes, and feeling what they feel in that shoes. And that takes work and discipline if it's something you want to do. But it is one of the skills that you must embark on if you want to be successful as a leader.
Fatu?
Yes. In lieu of time, we have taken 4 questions, or well, 3 questions already, and this will be the 4th. We'll ask the 4th question, and this one is quite a bit of an interesting one. So this person said, does empathy, basically what this person is saying is, does empathy equate to weakness? Being empathetic, does that mean that you are weak?
No, no. People, I think that's one of the challenges that, you know, people feel that when you're empathic, you're weak. Or actually on the contrary, because when you're empathic, you know how the other person is feeling, you know how the other person is, you know, is sometimes even thinking. You know, when that person walks into that room, what you should be doing is to work on how you manage what you want to take in terms of that feeling. So you can choose to say, okay, I feel, you know, I feel Fatu Amira's, you know, I feel what she's going through. I feel her challenges. But, you know, I don't want to absorb all of that, because as human beings, we're all sponges. You absorb negative energies, you absorb positive energies, you know, but as long as you're aware, and that is where mindfulness comes in, as long as you're mindful and you're aware of this, you need to be able to filter through that. But I have yet to see an empathic person that is weak, honestly. They're very strong people. They're very strong because they know themselves, and they know what they want. They believe in themselves because they already know. And you know, they can get emotional sometimes when too much of the sponge is absorbed. But boy, when they hit back, you don't want to be around. So I would, you know, I wouldn't call that being empathic weak.
So the strongest leaders are empathetic.
Yes, invariably, yes. Invariably the strongest leader, because they know themselves, they know what their qualities are. And when you have that empathic feeling, it's a gift that you can use to earn so much trust. You can use to lift people up. You can, as a leader, when you have that empathy, I mean, you can build mountains. You can build mountains with your team without even having to say anything to them. It happens. It will just happen naturally, because they also would feel that you feel them and you gauge them, and you are able to understand where they're coming from and what their perspective is. I think the big challenge of where a thin line is being that empath and objectivity versus subjectivity. But that's another discussion. But invariably, you try to be as objective as possible as an empath, so that you are not judging the people, and it's not coming from here, but it's coming from how you feel, that feeling from inside.
Okay, great. So Fat, what we'll do, I'll ask this question and then give you to ask your final question, and then we'll summarize, because we've done about an hour, 20 minutes. So this one says, thank you, Madam Wadda. My question is, as a mother and wife, what would you advise young ladies who would like to follow your footsteps?
Follow your dreams, go for it, be fearless, believe in yourself. That journey is a journey you will work on your own. Climbing up that ladder is very, 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 very extremely lonely at the top. I can tell you that. Because, and again, this is where the empathy, having that empathic feeling, because when you are at the top, it's difficult to know who your friends are, who your allies are, who are around you to exploit you, who are around you to take advantage of you. Whatever decisions you make going to the top, you will have to make them on your own, and you will have to take responsibility for whatever decisions there are. Fortunately, you people are young now. Life is a bit more lenient with you people, as young married women. For us, it was very difficult. Society would frown on us. But when you believe in what you want, if your career is your passion, then nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you if it is a passion that you have inside of you. My only advice to you as a woman, when you're climbing up the ladder, please turn around and lift another woman, please. Because like I said, it is a very lonely journey for women climbing up the ladder. You will be battered, you will be called names, you will get the whole works. But you have to be prepared to go the full Monty, irrespective of whatever comes. And when it's a passion, those things, they fall off. Now you're human, you will cry in your quiet moments, but my advice that I always give is just focus on the goalpost. As a footballer, you would always have the strikers coming, you would always have the defenders coming, you would always have people come. Focus on the goalpost. Focus on where you want to go, how you want to get there. Because as you're climbing up the ladder, people, the spectators, they're not in the football field. They will tell you, turn left, why didn't you do it this way? Why didn't you pass on to that person? And if they had been on that field, they wouldn't do it. When you're a leader, people would always tell you, do it this way, do it that way. Everybody tells you. But you must believe in yourself. You must have that as President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf always says, when you're climbing up the ladder and you're making a decision to climb up that ladder, if that fire in your belly doesn't scare you, then your dream is not big enough. You have to be able to dream when climbing up that ladder, to the point that you wake up in the middle of the night and ask yourself, am I crazy? What the hell am I doing? And when that happens and you wake up in the middle of the night with sweat pangs and doubts coming, you know that that dream, you can achieve it. So if it hasn't churned your stomach, the dream is not big enough. So dream big, climb up that ladder, but please, please, please pick up somebody on the way up. That is one advice I would give to us women that are going into leadership position, and all women, because you are a leader at home, you're a leader in your kitchen, you are a leader to your siblings, you're a leader to your children, you're a leader at work, you're a leader in your community. So I think it's a skill, and it's a quality that we should all build upon and see ourselves as leaders.
Thank you very much for that. And since I have been given permission from Ms. Njai to ask one last question, the last question is, how is empathy measured and valued and not necessarily misconstrued for a wannabe? So maybe a light example for maybe someone who has business or political gains. How can it not be misconstrued? How can empathy be measured?
When something is a feeling, you can't fake it. It's very difficult to fake being empathic, because when you say a leader has this feeling of empathy, you need to ask yourself whether, is it compassion? Is it, because if that person is faking empathy, you would know, people would know, because it wouldn't last. It's not natural. It doesn't come from within. It's something that comes there, that your ego's telling you, to be able to do this, you have to be able to, you can say it. You can say, I'm an empath. You can say, I have empathy. You can say it, but it's a feeling where if you have empathy, I mean, like I said, I don't know whether I've met Fatou Camara in person. I've never met Lovett Jallow, but the moment she started talking, you knew she wasn't faking it. You knew this was a woman who just let go, and there was just fireworks. So it's something that you would know, and people would know when somebody is faking it. Because when you're an empath, you don't go around saying, hi, I'm an empath. Hi, I feel empathy. Hi, I'm an empath. You would be able to know, because it's something that comes from inside and not from the top. It's very difficult to measure because, like I said, issues, how do you measure integrity? How do you measure honesty? It comes from qualities that individuals have of, depending on where you grow up, how you were raised, and people will speak for you. People will know, and they will speak for you. It's very difficult for me to explain, and it's very difficult to explain what the feeling of empathy, because it's not something, how do you, it's like life. How do you explain life? Can you see life? Can you smell life? Can you feel life? You can't, but life is life. And that's what that feeling of empathy is. You know it, but you're not able to see it. You're not able, can you measure life? So, it's a very tricky question, but it's like a human quality that it's a God-given gift that we all have, whether we use it or not.
Great. But Fatou, why don't I allow you? Do you have any question yourself? I mean, you've been reading questions. You're a young lady, and you've listened to Madam Wadda, do her presentation.
Yes.
Maybe you would have a question that you want to ask. So go ahead.
I did ask the question for those who don't have the capacity or who are not naturally trained to feel empathy. That is the question that I asked. Mm-hmm. Those who are not naturally trained or who have not been in the environment in which they've seen empathy or empathetic movements and empathetic feelings, and who just are not immersed in that environment and don't have it naturally within them. How can they tap into the empathy space? And
I mentor and coach quite a number of young ladies, and now quite a number of young men as well. And really helping them in the conversations that we have, in really helping them to bring the best of themselves out. And in the process, some of them are actually bringing that out that was dormant in them, that some of them didn't know they had. Some of them felt it sometimes, but really helping them to build on it, and journaling their feelings of things when they watch TV. How do they feel? You know, when they were at the traffic light and the car just rushed past them, you know, how did they feel about that driver? Were they angry? Did they say maybe there was somebody in the car that needed an emergency? Or did they say that person was stressed out? Maybe the person had a bad day, you know, and just keep jotting down these reactions and building on them until you are able to, because everything, you know, is lifelong learning. Everything is what you learn about yourself and you grow. And myself, everybody else, we learn every day. You learn, you unlearn, and you relearn, and you build. So, but, you know, I know a couple of them that have been able to start bringing it out. I don't read their journals, but they're jotting down those feelings and trying to be very objective in practicing that feeling without judging the other person, without, you know, focusing on their feeling rather than on their thinking. Because when you're thinking I'm an empath and you're talking as if you are an empath, that's your ego talking. When you're feeling it, we are all wired, we are all connected. So if you're faking it, if somebody is an empath, they would know if you are an empath or if you're faking saying you're an empath. You would know. Yeah.
So yes, thank you very much for that, Mr. Njai. But my question was answered, but I do kind of have a debate to kind of bring through understanding, like an underlying debate in terms of the gender disparity of being an empath and empathy, and what is expected of us as human beings, how we are expected to navigate not only in the workplace, but in our daily lives of feeling empathy towards one another. And Mrs. Dibba Wadda already cleared that up and said, you know what, look, it's something that needs to be practiced, right? So there's no sort of argument like, oh, you're a woman and you naturally have this in you, so I cannot do it. No.
Everybody has it. Men,
and
women.
We all hold ourselves accountable.
Absolutely.
So I'm very glad that you brought that up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
everybody has it. You just need to be aware of it. You need to accept that you have it, and you need to build on it like you go to the gym every day. And the more you do, the more you know. When you get there, when you are fully a sponge that is absorbing, nobody's going to tell you. You will know you are. You will know you are an empath. And people around you will know you are an empath, and they will know whether you're faking it or whether you are authentic.
Yeah, like you said, you cannot fake authenticity. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, great. Now, Madame, by the way, just a compliment, very special compliment, came from your better half. You know, by sent a good compliment, say, go girl. You know, I thought I'd just mention it. You know, I need to mention it. That probably you are within the same edifice, but you know, he's still.
Well, I'm in my office, and he's somewhere.
He's complimenting you publicly. You know, saying "Go girl." You know.
Thank you.
And on those basis, you know, I have also another wife who's also sent a message. So therefore, I mean, I wasn't going to take other questions, but Iman sends a question here. So I dare not say no. You know us very well. You know where I'm coming from.
I know where you're coming from.
So I better just read Iman's, you know. So Iman says, what is one advice you would give to young leaders who are promoted within an organization or come in as an external candidate and now have to lead a team of people who are stuck in their ways doing business as usual?
I think at the beginning, I gave an example when I joined, you know, when I work in an organization. I think first things first, every individual needs to have a coach or a mentor, no matter how old you are, no matter how experienced you are, you need to have a coach. If you're able to get a professional coach and a life coach, fine. But you need to have one of those two. A sounding board that helps you, you know, to check in at all times, that you can talk about some of these issues, that can really help you to, you know, to pace yourself to be able to work on what you want to do and help you achieve your goals. But like I said, what I do, and this is my own, there's no blueprint for it. It depends on situations. When I walk into an organization, I spend the first 100 days. I would spend 1 week on Mustafa Njai. What makes him tick? What time does he come to work? Who does he hang out with? How does he engage in team meetings? What is his personality like? Find out more, and I write it down. And then the following week, I go to Fatu Amira. How does she, what do you say that makes her get excited? What triggers her, excitement? And you find out, who do you see her hanging out with? And then you do the same thing with another one. So after my first 100 days, like in ADB, when I joined, this is an organization that is very, very, very hierarchical. And you go in there and you get people who say, this is how we do it. You come in here, you do it our way, or you go, conversation and communications with those people is essential. One-to-one meetings with them, finding out what expectations are. If you come in as a leader and you're promoted, call these people one-to-one. What are your expectations of me? How can I help you, or how can I serve you, or how can I support you to get the best out of the best? I mean, we're all human beings, no matter how arrogant, no matter how angry, no matter how bitter a person is. If somebody calls you into a room, or your boss calls you into a room and says, how can I help you to get the best out of yourself? Irrespective, you would, some would say, I don't know. Others would actually start to open up. And then a month later, you call in that person again. How are things going? Remembering when the person mentioned it was my daughter's birthday, or it's my mother's anniversary, or my parent, remembering those little things that they would not expect you to remember, shows sometimes that feeling of, oh, she cares, or it matters. I'll tell you something about somebody that I know who has that erred me, and that's President Clinton. I met President Clinton, we had a conversation, he talked and we chatted, and he asked about my family, I told him. 4 years later, I met him again, and he was like, so how's Bai, how's Omar? I was shocked. And I was talking to somebody else who said to me, that is one skill this man has. Memory, photographic, remembrance of things. Now, if you are a leader and you're able to remember these little things that matter to your team, you will get 200%. But the key is you must be communicating with them regularly. You cannot just sit in your office and give instructions. Chat with them. When you're a leader, it's different from being a manager. The manager is the one that makes sure quality control, who is the one that makes sure monitoring progress on things that are made. When you are the leader out there, you are the one that people will go to. You are the one that creates that environment for people to feel safe. I got a lot of resistance, and one example I did, because I had 19 people, I decided that once a month, I don't know whether maybe some of my staff are watching this, once a month, we would do a cook-in and we would cook. So we will get all from South Africa or Southern Africa that would cook a national dish, and they bring it to the office on a Friday. And so I was just trying to break them so that, they felt comfortable with me. And so we cooked, and in the end, it became a competition. And of course, the West Africans won. So every time it was Gambia and Senegal that was cooking, we brought ours. And then you had the Ghanaians and the Nigerians cooking. So we started having the cookouts on a Friday, and other department staff used to come and enjoy that. So we all looked forward to it on a Friday. And we used to have a roster where we had the French and the Belgians would cook and bring their cheese and whatever. And another thing we did also was, because I had more Anglophones in my department, I decided we would have Friday as a Francophone day, speaking French. Anybody who speaks, so all meetings we had, had to be in French, whether you're speaking Franglais or whatever. Your meetings, your emails, everything would be in French. And if you make a mistake, you pay 10,000 CFA and we keep it. And at the end of the year, we have a kitty, you know, where we use the funds to go out and have a meal. So you do certain things, and that's what the leader does, which is different from the manager. So with the manager, you agree as a leader with a supervisor or manager to play good cop, bad cop. The leader should always be the good cop. That would be the mediator, that would be the arbitrator, and the manager would be the one that makes sure the deadlines happen and so on. So as the leader, you are looking at the performance indicators of the organization as a whole or the department as the whole. Now the manager and the supervisor is looking at the day-to-day specifics. And obviously that's where you have the conflict with your staff, because you are monitoring, you're putting pressure on them, you know, those things happen. So you must be able to create a relationship, create an environment, build trust, and listen. Listen, listen, listen. When you're having a conversation, have a conversation to listen, not a conversation to respond. Now that's different if I'm arguing with my husband. I listen to respond. Now, if I'm doing that with my staff, you listen to be able to hear. And when you respond back, you say, if I hear you rightly, you said this and this and this, so that the person knows that you actually listen because you've repeated the first 3 sentences of what the person said. So you must build that relationship as a leader, because trust is not going to come because you are the boss. These are the people who can make you or break you. Believe me, it doesn't matter what you have, they make you or break you. So you have to create a relationship, you have to communicate with them, you have to create an environment, you have to listen to them, you have to throw those odd happy birthdays when it comes, you know, you have to go that extra mile for those people to earn that loyalty and that trust, and not fake it. Be genuine, be authentic. You know, everything we do is give and take. So you do it, you know, to acknowledge them, to feel them, so that you can also get the best out of them to help you achieve the goal and the objective you want to. So leadership, it's very difficult managing people because expectations are all over the place. And you must study each individual and learn how to manage them differently. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach. You will fail woefully. I hope I've answered my sister's question.
Excellent. That was a good one. That was a good one. Yeah, before I give you a final word, I mean, let me also, you know, take you through my own experience on empathy, because obviously, as you know, I in a position of leadership and across, you know, border. And one of my biggest weaknesses as a leader and for the type of business that I do is getting rid of people. I mean, everybody's got their own.
As we wait patiently.
People. I mean, when people don't do something right, especially in our own business, you know, it's spontaneous. You just go and look, you are fired, you know, and if the boss says it's so, you go. But what happens to me on empathy, I mean, I go back, I mean, after a day's work, and then I reflect on the things that I have done. So, and my staff do know this about me, especially in Nigeria. I mean, my personal assistant, I mean, my human resources department, when I say I fire, they give me some time. They will say, yes, Oga, yeah, West is done, you know, but because they know that by now, they've known who I am. But most of the time, and I'm telling you the instinct, what happens to me, probably because I've seen that you've done something so wrong that at the time I couldn't accept when he utters a word, because probably they know that probably, you know, I have been very sympathetic to this guy, or, you know, I've given him some chances. So, but what happened is after going back home and slipping over it, when I come back, say probably I look at this guy and I know exactly where he's going into. That look, this guy has a family to feed. Then I start to think of the reasons why he took the decision. What was it that went wrong that he did something that bad? And then probably by putting, not only do you put yourself in his shoes, but put him in your
wear the
own shoes.
Yes.
Then look, here I am. I am waking up from a room. You know, I had a good 8 hours sleep because I had uninterrupted power. I mean, there's a car that's waiting for me and a driver. I had a nice breakfast. You know, I walk into my office, then go onto the site. I mean, things just happen with me. So I'm supposed to perform. But those that you are leading, I mean, a leader should understand that everybody you are leading doesn't have these privileges.
Absolutely.
You know, probably he's somebody that when power goes off, I mean, he hardly slept. You know, probably, you know, he or she has got a 9-year-old baby, you know, or a 9-year-old child or a 4-month-old baby or so, you know, that had, you know, some ailment at night and he or she couldn't sleep at all. But who that put us to work, you know, so it's not the same as you, the leader. Yeah. That's not used for them. But being empathetic is just putting yourself, you know, in their shoes. Understanding the problem, okay, maybe he deserves, or you want to say, okay, I said it, but now I've changed my mind. So what I did mostly in Nigeria, and this is, you know, Nigerian humor, I tell them that, look, I am the judge and there's no appeal. My decision is final. So yesterday I said that you should fire Mrs. Wadda, but today I said, no, don't fire him.
Exactly.
You know, but it's just being empathetic. You know, at times it's an instinct. It's something that comes out of you that, okay, here I am. What does it cost me to give him or give her another chance? But knowing very well that if you send that
person home,
you know, when you are a leader, I mean, amongst others. So that was something I wanted to contribute.
Absolutely. Because when maybe at the time you were
out of experience.
Maybe at the time you're responding,
you know,
you're responding on impulse. So afterwards, on reflection, you start becoming more objective in your thinking and in your analysis of it rather than being subjective at the time. And that comes back, you know. So it you know, that empathy thing, once you build on it, the more you build on it, the more it's there. So it will fight you. So it doesn't matter whether you want to or not. If it's in there, when you make an irrational decision, it will come back to get you. It definitely will. So
great. So anyway, Madam Oley Dibba Wadda, I mean, let's have your final words. I mean, it's yours. Final words before I wrap up, because actually this is the longest session we've ever had. We're almost going to 2 hours.
Oh wow!
It's about 1 hour 46 minutes that we have been on the air. But you know, wrap up and, you know, your last words. You have, you know, very high compliments. I'm sure you'll have time probably to go through this, you know, through the FATU Network link. But, you know, people are impressed about you. You know, I've been reading some of the comments, you know, so, but take some time and, you know, just give us your last words.
I think this is, you know, I really want to applaud you for this. This is well needed. What we do need is to start breeding ethical leaders. Ethical leaders in the sense of public leadership, in the sense of entrepreneurial leadership, you know, community leadership. So, you know, I encourage, you know, many more TAFs to come forward and, you know, to do this. It doesn't have to be in the form of lecture. It could be in different forms. But I think that giving back to the present generation, not the future, I think is fundamental. And leadership is something that is never taught in the classroom. These are soft skills. What you are teaching, the issues of honesty and integrity and empathy, are things that will never be taught in the universities. They will not be taught in the classrooms. If you are lucky, you have a parent or a grandparent or a mentor, you know, that would teach you in a different way. And we don't have this, and we need to have more of this. If we look at a lot of our children today, they were born between 1994, or even if they were born in 1990, all they know is, you know, what their parents went through, what has happened in this country. And something needs to happen to start breeding ethical leaders, so people realize that when you are a servant of the people, you know, doesn't mean you get four cars, doesn't mean you marry 12 wives, you know, to show your status. It is about getting the best out of who you are on the inside. And I think we need, you know, like I said, I think we need to have more of this. And hopefully maybe in 2021, you would probably have double the size or quadruple the size of, you know, of students and participants in the lectures. But I think this is going to scale. And there are a lot of leaders who are doing this now as part of, you know, giving back and building, you know, that round of young people behind them and around them. So history will judge you one day, and I think they will judge you for good. So I want to take the opportunity to commend all the students. I am available if you have questions. I can share my email address if you have questions that you want to ask and support. I don't do any of these things for you know, at any cost. It's all pro bono. I think lifting others to be a better part of who you are, or to be the best and better than who you are, is the biggest achievement that one can get. And we need to get more, you know, more people out there that are doing this, lifting others and supporting others. So I want to thank you for this opportunity once again, and to thank all the listeners and Ms. Amira. Thank you so much. And to the TAF 2020 cohorts, keep on keeping on, onwards and upwards. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Auntie O. We can't thank you more. I mean, I think you've done quite a brilliant presentation. But let me also thank Fatu Amira for an excellent, you know, being an excellent co-host. This shows that, you know, there are so many of these young people who can do what we're doing, so we need to make way for them. And this is what leadership is all about. I mean, I tell people that, you know, quite often people, you know, ask me about leadership. And I say, my leadership style is a bulldozer type. Bulldozer meaning, you know, a bulldozer has a blade in front of it. So you push people in front. You know, that doesn't mean that you are not leading. You know, you don't have to have followers. You know, you get those leaders in front, and then you give them the opportunity. Yeah, so you lead from behind. So Fatu Amira is one of them, young, talented, you know, and it was good that Fatu Kamara suggested this, that, you know what, let's get Fatu to come on board. So we want to commend Fatu Kamara also, who's in Gambia now. And for, you know, having, you know, Fatu Amira on board. I'm sure, you know, she's done an excellent job. And to you, Auntie O, yeah, Auntie O, thanks so much. You know, we're very happy with this. You did it last year. I mean, when we had only 50 fellows, that was more physical. That was pre-COVID-19. And now we have about 350 who are registered. Wow. You know, and through a virtual lecture, I mean, they connect online. So you see, not everything that happened with COVID is bad. Yes. You know, so from the comfort of our homes, yeah, from the comfort of our homes, we can still sit and connect it. You know, Fatu Amira is in Washington. Both of us are in the Gambia. You know, but Alpha Sumare, who's hosting all this, you know, is in what's it? I always forget the place that in
Cyprus.
No, not Cyprus,
Really?
actually. See, you know, wow. he's in what's the island next to Turkey?
Turkish Republic of not Cyprus.
I'm sorry?
Sorry?
Turkish Republic of North Cyprus.
Turkish Republic of North Cyprus, yeah. So that's the way that it's called. But anyway, you see that he's been silent, but he's the one who's managing all this. By the way, Alpha is one of our staff, but he's pursuing a degree, you know, in Cyprus, and that's he's hosting all this. But that's technology for us today, absolutely, and we really need to capitalize on it. Mm-hmm. So I would really like to thank you. The reason why we're doing this is just to create, you know, leaders, young leaders. I wouldn't call them future leaders, mm-hmm, but they are young leaders. Mm-hmm. And I will quote this, and I said this quite often, because very often we hear the youth, you know, the very young saying, oh, it's our turn, we should lead. And then we hear the elderly, you know, who would say, oh, no, dangan yakamti, you know, halal again. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Auntie, oh, me, I am a real Gamo cat. I go to Gamos and I listen to these scholars. Mm-hmm. And this was what somebody said, you know, in Tuawon. He said, Maudo mune ndajalo hamne halal regla ragal malel. I will interpret this in English. Mm-hmm. I'll translate it in English. Mune ndaje tamit bo hamne mag regla mune ragal ndaje bo. Mune ndaje dafa jahaso da nga am ay halal am ay mag. Lu am na yo xamne halal ñoko mun am na yo xamne mag ñoko mun. In English, meaning simply that for our English listeners, that within any gathering, within any movement, within anything, it must be mixed age. Absolutely. There's nothing like, oh, no, we are the youth, we should be without giving our turn to lead. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, we are the elders and you guys are inexperienced. There should be a mix, because there are certain things that should be done by the youth, whilst others should be done by the elderly. So this is why we're doing this. And I'm sure by the time they're in the position of leadership, or they are already in the position of leadership, it will actually impact on their skills. There are also people who are listening, who are not within the youth bracket, you know, who are learning from this. You know, that's why we're doing this. So thank you very much from the TAF Africa Foundation, its management, and TAF Africa Global, and my own self. So let me also just announce that the next speaker, we're trying to get a date with her, we haven't confirmed, will be Mrs. Fatou Kinte. Ms. Fatou Kinte is the Minister of Women's Affairs. I've reached out to her. Is Minister of Women's Affairs, Children and Social Welfare. I've reached out to her and she's given her consent, but we need to agree on the topic and also the date. Because what happened was we had 3 male, you know, that is Professor Dr. Karamo Sonko, Mr. Usain Ngom, and Mr. Lamin Manjang, who delivered their lecture. So I want to be seen to be gender balanced here. So we've started with Mrs. Oley Dibba Wadda. I would like to have 2 more ladies before we go to the male again. So again, thank you so much. A great thank you to all those who are connected online. I hope you have learned something new from our able presenter, lecturer, Mrs. Oley Dibba Wadda. So on that note,
I'm very humbled.
Thank you so much and God bless.
Amen.
Till we meet
Thank
again.
you. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
All right. Thank you.